A major peace breakthrough in the Middle East. What the heck is going on with the post office? And we'll end this week with a little bit of love, hate, eight. Here's what you need to know. Good morning. This is Cheddar's Need2Know podcast for Friday, August 14th. I'm Jill Wagner with Carlo Versano. Hi, Carlo.
Happy Freitag, Jill. We made it another week. It's beautiful. Looking at a beautiful sunrise over downtown Brooklyn. Feeling pretty good today. How about you?
I'm feeling good. I'm very happy it's Friday. I had a short week. For some reason, the shorter weeks sometimes feel even longer than a regular week.
One of life's great mysteries.
We are going. Pardon? What, Carlo?
I was just saying it's one of life's great mysteries. Why that always feels that way, right?
Yes, very true. Okay, we are going to start with some different type of news today. We're going to start in the Middle East. Israel and the United Arab Emirates have agreed to establish formal diplomatic relations in a deal that was brokered by the White House. In exchange, so Israel has agreed to suspend a plan to annex parts of the occupied West Bank. The UAE is the first Gulf Arab state to formalize a relationship with Israel, although the two countries have had a working relationship for years.
Yes. So Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says annexation is off the table for now at the request of President Trump, who was said to be very involved in this deal, though that annexation plan had been falling apart for a while. Jill, you're more of the expert on Israeli politics than me, but it seems to me like any movement is good, right? And it's something to be celebrated. You know, the UAE is a very strange country. It's got like an 80% population of foreigners, but in theory, this would put more pressure on the Saudis, I would think, at least.
Yeah, I mean, so it's potentially a game changer. Israel and the UAE, as I mentioned before, have had relationships for years, but mostly in secret and mostly over their mutual enemy, Iran. But this deal basically means they're taking their relationship public, so to speak. So they're going to have embassies and ambassadors. They're going to have formal talks on trade, tourism, even perhaps working together on the fight against coronavirus and a vaccine. And this could be the first step to normalizing relationships with other Arab countries. You mentioned Saudi Arabia, likely next. Again, Israel and Saudi Arabia do have a relationship now, mostly in secret, also over their mutual enemy, Iran. So from the reporting I've been reading, most Israelis are pretty thrilled about this. Most. As for the Palestinians, from the reporting I've also seen, it's getting some mixed reaction. On the one hand, I guess a little bit of relief that Israel agreed not to annex parts of the West Bank, which will eventually be part of their country in any type of two-state solution. But there is a sense of betrayal as well. The thinking always was that the Palestinians would make peace with Israel first, and then the rest of the Arab world would maybe follow. But again, if this plays out well, it could be a game changer.
Hey, we could use one,
here
right?
in the U.S. Pardon? Say that again?
So I was just going to say we could use a game changer.
Yes, we can. I could use, I think better earphones or something. Yes, Carlo. Let's talk about the police here in the post office here in the U.S. President Trump appearing to confirm that he is opposing funding for the Postal Service because it would make it easier to vote by mail in November. He was answering a question about why negotiations on a stimulus package are at an impasse in Congress and why he won't agree to more money for the USPS, which is in really bad shape and now has to contend with potentially millions of mail-in ballots. 75% of the country this year has an opportunity to vote by mail in their state.
So I want to actually quote President Trump here, quoting, they, the Democrats, need the money in order to have the post office work so it can take all of these millions and millions of ballots. But if they don't get those two items, that means you can't have universal mail-in voting because they're not equipped to have it. So I just want to quote that because, he's kind of given away the ghost and saying the quiet part out loud. Though I should mention he did later seem to back off of this a bit. It's so hard to cover President Trump because he says something and then it's just like, was that like real? Like, did you actually say that? But regardless of what he said, there
And
are
it's like,
really
is that policy or is that just
right.
like
There's that
you're
Are you
off the
just
cuff
riffing?
and yeah.
Yeah, so it's really difficult, but I mean it is really a notable thing to say, and a thing that again, if you heard that said by any other president in any other election year, it would be really like a huge deal. But regardless of what he said, there are really worrisome things happening behind the scenes at the USPS right now, which was recently put in the control of a major Trump donor, who's now the Postmaster General. So this reporting from Vice yesterday, the Postal Service has started moving mail sorting machines at several processing facilities around the country, just sort of like getting rid of them. These are the machines that would sort mail-in ballots in an election. The post office telling Vice that that's routine, but union officials that they spoke to said the removals are more widespread than normal, and it's being done under this cloak of secrecy. Um, uh, this is really like this is sort of like a five-alarm fire, and there's no firemen to put it out. I think is one way to think about this.
Meanwhile, a dire warning from the director of the CDC, who has said that the U.S. is on the verge of, quote, the worst fall from a public health perspective we've ever had. Every American, he said, should be doing four things: wear a mask, social distance, wash your hands, and be smart about crowds. He's also urging everybody to get a flu shot, especially kids. Usually, he said there's about like a 50% of people get a flu shot. But he's recommending that everybody get it this year.
Oh, yeah, that's a great point to mention. I have this. I wonder if is it possible that the flu season will actually not be so bad this year, just because we're all so cognizant of coronavirus? I was just thinking about that. I don't know.
I
I
mean,
don't know if
that's
there's
the
any.
hope, right? I mean, the
Right.
hope is that the same things that you would do to prevent the coronavirus are the same things that you would do to prevent the flu. So perhaps just taking those efforts will make both not quite as bad as they could be.
Right. Well, anyway, on the coronavirus developments, California just hitting 600,000 cases. That's the most of any state, including New York. Though it does look like it's turning a corner. That's at least what the governor of that state said. Um, in my efforts to be positive, the 14-day national moving average is down 18%. That's great. It suggests we're probably past the peak of this summer wave, which I don't even know if you'd call this like the second wave. Is it still part of the first wave? I don't know, but Lordy, do I worry about the fall, Jill.
There's also something going on with the reporting of the data and the testing.
Yeah.
It seems like just it's gotten really unreliable. Testing has actually gone way down. Um,
Well, and ever since they
so I,
moved the testing from the CDC to the Department of Health and Human Services, it's like this black box. You can't really tell what's actually happening.
which is the issue, right? Because I don't know, I still go on the maps, and click on my
Yeah,
county and click on my state to see with cases are they going up or down, and that it helps me it informs my decisions in terms of
sure.
what do I want to go out for outdoor dining, whatever it is.
Yeah, if you can't
Um,
trust the data, that's sort of like the basics, right?
Okay, a little bit of promising news in the labor market. For the first time since the pandemic began, the number of workers filing for unemployment for first time unemployment benefits has fallen below 1 million. That happened last week. So, this is, a pretty big milestone, an encouraging sign for the economic recovery. The stock market didn't react much. They're so forward looking at this point
Yeah. I
that
was actually
I
surprised
don't
by
know
that,
what,
though.
what would slow it down.
It's interesting because the market used to react a lot to two things in the last few months. It was the labor market, any data on labor market, and any data on the vaccine. And now it just seems like it's just ripping higher. I think earnings obviously have a lot to do with it. What's happening with all these tech companies just absolutely, becoming bigger by the day. But the S&P 500 has been flirting all week to that point with a record high, which it last set in February. Think about that. We are probably, if not today, then one day next week, we will be back in a bull market. The index, if it just gains 0.5%, it will officially be out of a bear market, which will have been the shortest bear market in history. But again, this stuff is so like it's so hard to make sense of it, right? Because it's like, sure, the bear market may be technically over, but it sure as hell isn't over for, the something like 30 million people who are unemployed, and who, if you count the people who have just stopped actively looking for work. So, it's really a tale of two economies, right?
Well, it's not a tale of two economies. It's just a tale of the stock market not being representative of the economy. So the stock market's
Sure.
a separate thing. It's a market of stocks, and the economy is the economy. And usually they kind of are in tandem. But in this case, so here's one way to look at it if you're like wondering why the heck the market's at record highs. So just say 10 mom and pop stores closed during the pandemic. Okay, so like my friend, her gym closed.
Hmm.
It was a boutique gym. It closed 2 days ago, and it's heartbreaking. Um, Restaurants, or not restaurants, but local stores or whatever. Where are people going to go? They're probably going to go to a public company that's traded on the stock
Yeah.
exchange, right? They might go to Walmart or they might shop at Amazon. Like if your local bodega or your local store where you buy food closed, you might actually have to say, you know what, I'm going to order from Kroger or whatever it may be. I mean, the supermarket
Yeah.
might
Yeah.
not be
Yeah.
the best example, but if your local clothing store that you love to go to on your corner and try stuff on in person, if that closes, then you probably will just say, all right, I'll order something from Amazon, or I need a new backpack. I'm not going to get it from that store. I'm going to get it from Walmart.com, or go to Walmart. So that's where it's hard to. What's going on with the economy, it diverges from what's going on with the stock market.
Well, yeah, and it's all. I mean, I think that if you took out, Amazon, Apple, Facebook, and Google from the S&P 500, we wouldn't be anywhere near a high. I mean, it's just those stocks are just roaring, and exactly what you said. I mean, the pandemic has done two things. It has made trends. It has made trends that were already happening, like trends in retail towards e-commerce. It has sped all of them up, but it's also just it's made these companies so much more dominant because like they're the companies that we're now interacting with, to your point, right? Instead of interacting with our local grocery store, we're interacting more with Amazon and Apple. It's a very strange thing.
Okay, the largest movie theater company in the world inching back toward normalcy or something approaching it. AMC is going to start reopening movie theaters in the United States next Thursday, and they've got a special promotion to get some tushies in the seats. Any movie at any theater is going to just cost 15 cents for one day only. The theater chain is going to be reopening 100 locations with 300 more to follow in the following 2 weeks.
15 cents, all the COVID you can get in your lungs in 2 hours. No, thank you. I've said, I mean, no movies, no theaters, no concerts for me until I've got the vaccine. Like it's just not worth it. But on the movie front, the Hollywood front, there are two big movies that are coming out today, but only in Canada. The SpongeBob movie and Unhinged, which is this weird, I don't know if you've seen the trailer for this, but it's this weird road rage movie starring an extremely fat Russell Crowe. They will both open at 300 Canadian theaters this weekend. And what's interesting here is because Canada is considered part of the domestic box office when they do like the receipts, both those films will essentially become the de facto highest grossing movies of the summer.
It's just
It's
crazy.
so weird, right?
Um, it's just a weird summer. So movies and then music, right? The whole entertainment ecosystem is just out of whack. Usually by mid-August, the song of the summer would have been solidified. And I feel like this is just always one of your favorite topics, Carlo.
Oh, you know it.
Last year, last year it was Old Town Road. The year before that, it was In My Feelings by Drake. The year before that, Despacito. Um, which I kind of still have stuck in my head 3 years later, or at least
What a
I
great
certainly
song.
will today.
Yeah.
And but with the pandemic just splintering this world of pop music, this year's song of the summer has been a lot less obvious because the Billboard Hot 100 went 6 weeks in May and June with six different songs at number one.
Yeah, and that was before this song "Rockstar" by the rapper DaBaby rose to the top, where it has stayed for the following 6 weeks. That song was just dethroned this week by Harry Styles, a song called "Watermelon Sugar," which is making a late surge. Jill, I spent literally an hour last night, like pouring through the Billboard charts because I just became like obsessed with this idea about like what is the song of the summer this year. But you're right. Like everything's splintered. There's usually this thing. It becomes more obvious because there's concerts and people hear these songs on repeat at bars and in restaurants and at parties. But without any of those things, there's no real way to build consensus, right? So it's a lot less obvious. But it does sound like "Rockstar" by DaBaby is going to be the song of the summer, which I endorse. It's a good song. And by the way, I did call, just for the record, "Old Town Road" as song of the summer on this very podcast last April.
I
Don't
remember
ever
it, and
forget
I
it.
remember I hadn't even heard of it yet.
Mhm.
And you played it, and I remember the first time I heard it, I wasn't a fan. Now I love it. It's just one of it's I guess the way our
That's
brains
a
work, where something just gets in your head. I
totally.
feel like I guess if I was gonna say a song of the summer, maybe Watermelon Sugar. Um,
I don't
I
even know this
tend
song.
to think I can't even attempt to sing it. I
Okay, I'm
like
gonna.
I got this close to singing it, Carlo, but it didn't happen. I kind of feel like maybe the song of the summer though this year needs to be one of these Taylor Swift slower like ballads, just because it's weird to have this
Yeah.
a high energy
Right.
song of the summer.
No,
But
like
anyway,
Despacito wouldn't work this summer because like that's a
no,
song
no, like you
that's a
need
song
a
you want to be
bar
like at a
or a
bar.
club.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
need to be like going to
All
town.
right.
So yeah, I agree with you.
Let's do a little love hate eight just to finish this off on a Friday. One thing we love that I'm loving this week, an old fashioned hardcover book comes especially in handy when power is out for a full week, including cell phones too. So I have been reading up a storm,
What are you
no
reading
pun
right now?
intended, even actually since I've gotten the lights back on.
Look, that's great. I mean, I have too. But I'm curious, what are you reading right now? I feel like should we do like a need to know book club?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I can commit to it. I don't
Yeah.
know if I could commit to reading a I hate to say it. I just feel like between the news and my daughter and I'm moving,
Yeah,
um,
yeah, yeah, that's fair. Well, one of the
I,
things with
I
working in news is I read so much, but so much of it is like news and current events content. I have so little time to read, like sit down with like a novel these days.
right. And then when I want to zone out, I usually like zone out to some just total lowest common denominator, Housewives, something like that. I happen to be reading. I love Emily Giffin. She is. I wouldn't call her chicklet. I don't know how you would describe her. She wrote something borrowed and something blue. That's kind of what she's known for.
Mhm.
I I I read her books like in one day. I get so
Yeah.
obsessed with them. So over the blackout, I read All We Ever Wanted, which was one of her books that I did not get to read. It came out in 2018, so I hadn't read that one yet. And I just started The Lies That Bind, and like I I'm on page 70 already, and
Yeah.
it's just they're page turners and just it's so much more rewarding than watching a movie on Netflix or something. But I don't get to do it as often as I want. So I will say, if anything good came from the power outage for me, it brought back my love of books.
No, that's great. You're like my wife. My wife crushes like a book a week, and I'm just like, how do you? But I think you know what it is. Is when I'm sleeping, I go to bed so early, and then she comes in and she spends like an hour just reading at night. Anyway, one thing we
But wait, no,
hate.
that's my problem though. By the way, because when I
Mhm.
start her books, I lose a lot of sleep because I stay up
Yeah.
reading,
Right.
and like you, it's
At
hard for me to
least,
put the book down. So it eats
at
away
least
at
you're
my
not
sleep.
watching TV.
True.
Okay, one thing we hate, getting hit with the dirty water from somebody's air conditioner during our daily walk. I think if you know what I'm talking about, right? You're walking down the street, you're minding your own business, you're like, "Oh, is it raining?" And then you look up and it's just like that gross dripping coming from some disgusting air conditioner that's been like propped up in somebody's window for a decade.
I don't. Is it dirt? I don't even. What is that water? Is it?
It's like the
I don't even
condensation.
want to think about it.
It's probably actually not dirty because I think it's just the condensation, but it's still just something about it is gross. The New York City
I feel like
baptism.
I saw a report on it, and someone said it is not. It isn't really dirty water, but it doesn't feel good. Ugh.
Okay, and I'm I'll
What did
take
you eat,
I'll,
Carlo?
okay, I'll take what they ate this week. beefsteak tomatoes, baby, from the farmer's market. Put a little sea salt on there. They're in season right now, at least in the Northeast. Just get yourself a nice big heirloom or beefsteak tomato this weekend. They're perfect.
We are growing tomatoes actually, and we just have been able to start, but just little cherry tomatoes, and they are delish.
Fantastic.
Okay, everybody, that's what you need to know for Friday, August 14th.
All right, guys, have a good weekend. See you on Monday.